We're going to start recording. So how's everybody doing today?
Good morning. Doing
Yeah,
wonderful. How's everyone?
Well, I'm great. Thank you. I could use a little bit more sleep. I ain't gonna lie, but I'm great. So one thing I want to start with, just a discussion on with coffee, tea, and lead. I just want to make clear that our intention for this is to have conversations and not necessarily to be daily lectures, right? So when we're talking about coffee, tea, and lead, we're asking you to come as you are, right? I mean, at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever that looks like, whether that means I'm on my way from dropping off the kids, or I'm I'm having my me time, having my first cup of coffee, and I haven't fully gotten all my stuff done yet. I just want you to come as you are, to participate in the conversation and either to share in your thoughts or to learn from others who are sharing your thoughts. So please feel free to do so. Feel free to have your camera on, like I said. If you got your bonnet on and you got your cup of tea, coffee, whatever, come as you are. We want to be able to bring familiarity as well. I mean, all of this is leading up to our event in April, and we'd love to be able to have you guys recognize each other and start building bonds and relationships prior to that event in April. So when you're able to, put your camera on, love and appreciate having that interaction. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to jump right in. Let's see. Okay. Y'all see me? See screen? We good? Okay. So let's make sure I share it with volume. Make sure I share it with volume because I got a little video in here. I want to. Okay. So today I want to talk about going small to go big. Last week we talked about limiting beliefs, right? And so if we're able to start removing those limiting beliefs, my question is for you, what does big look like without those limiting beliefs? Right? So we talked about limiting beliefs and removing them with affirmations and with all these different things that we talked about. And so what's the point? What's the big that you believe in your life that you can achieve? I'll give you some examples, and then I'd love to hear some from you guys as far as what your big might be, right? So I heard a story about a student, a statistics student, and his name was George Danzig. And he showed up late for class one day, and he made it just in time to see the two equations on the board, wrote them down, and he thought they were homework, right? So a few days later, he comes back with the homework late and apologizes and says, this was a lot harder than than normal. So, sorry for handing in late, but got it done and solved the equations. Unbeknownst to him, because he wasn't in class, he didn't know. The teacher came to him later and said, these were two famous unsolved equations that I put on the board that you happen to solve, right? Nobody told him that they were unsolved equations. Nobody put any limits on what was possible for him to complete and solve those equations. And so he did them, right? He thought it was homework. He did them. And so there was no limiting belief as to what was possible with regards to that. And he is now the father of linear equation, right? Different example, Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins was once gifted because he didn't grow up very wealthy as a child, and somebody was kind enough to gift him a meal for Thanksgiving, I believe it was, right? And that stuck with him to the point where now his goal is to give away 1 billion meals to families. 1 billion, right? So what's big? What's your big? I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, what's your big? Money's not a factor, time's not a factor. What's your big? Anybody?
Since we have silence, right? Oh, I'll start. So my big is just being able to take vacations that I don't take. And even right now, my big in my day is literally, as I keep talking about, a minute to think, and I'm gonna get into that on Thursday. But being able to pull these white space and wedges of time to be able to do what I feel like brings out the best in my work. Because I see it stifled by just being, overloaded with work and information and everything that we do in a day, whether it's personal or in business. But being able to pull that time out, because I've really been dedicated to that right now, and I'm seeing a lot of the benefit. So thanks for asking that question, Val.
Thank you for sharing, Leticia. Anybody else? One more. Come on. Y'all got
Good morning.
big.
I'll go.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Najee.
Good morning, everyone. So my big, and I was sharing with Leticia yesterday or the day before, I think. And my father was a priest, a Muslim imam, as they would call it. And he gave back to the community a lot. And he had passed away in 2015. And I've been trying to, they say you always get those blessings. And I've been working harder to find ways to give back to the community like he did. So that's, it all works together. Building my business, trying to twofold it, as well as giving back to the community and make that work. So that was my big dream. I can't hear anybody. No.
Nancy, Nancy or Jonna were wanted.
Go ahead, Nancy. I'll go. Okay, for me, my big is actually something that I'm working on now. And that would entail me writing a book to inspire. I've gone through a lot of things throughout my life, and I'm at a point where I'm ready to pour my story into others, and using that as a platform to become a motivational speaker, especially targeting women. So for me, that would be my big.
I love that. I love that. So I appreciate you sharing. Thank you, Nancy and Najee. I volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, and I love their housing initiative right now, because we know that Black homeownership is one of the lowest numbers of demographics in the country. And so there's an initiative right now to creating 1 million new Black homeowners with a joint effort with Habitat and a couple of other housing organizations. And so I love the idea of going big. And yet, when you wake up and think about your big, right, can it sometimes feel overwhelming? Can it sometimes feel like I don't know how I'm going to get there from where I am here, right? And so I want to talk to you about how we start small to go big. when we ended our conversation on limiting beliefs, we talked about one of the things to help overcome limiting beliefs is to develop an unshakable confidence, self-confidence, right? To move forward and do it anyways, right? And how do you develop that unshakable self-confidence? Well, you do what you say you will do. If you know that anything you say you will do will get done, that you will do it, will that not increase your self-confidence to be able to move forward and do more? Right? And so how do we do that? If we're able to commit to the small actions and consistently do what we say we're going to do, right? Sometimes we overcommit, right? We want to take on the world, and so we want to make all the promises in the world, and yet there's only so much that we can do in a 24-hour day, right? So if you are able to commit to small actions and small activities that help move you forward consistently, that'll help with increasing your confidence, and that'll help move the needle forward. So today I'm going to share some thoughts from this book called The One Thing. Now, The One Thing, author Gary Keller, who happens to be the CEO of Keller Williams Realty, is more of a business and personal growth book than anything else. This book has had a huge impact on me in my life because it gave me the grace to simplify my focus and my actions, right? And we're going to talk about what that looks like and the impact and the power that can have on your life. I'm going to share a video. Just make sure, let's hope it works. So
if you're a homeowner in Connecticut and you're
just get the ad.
What you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino, which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. And the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than 1 meter tall. Ready? Boom.
Yeah.
If
That was 13 dominoes. If I had 29 dominoes, the last domino would be as tall as the Empire State Building.
What was that?
couldn't see the video.
Kidding. Okay. We're gonna keep it going. So hold on. It wasn't audio only, it was video. Sorry. No, you know what? Let's see.
Check with him. Yeah.
Try this again.
There we go.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
I think it's worth it to see because it's a good visual for you guys to have and understand.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes, but what you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino, which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. And the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than 1 meter tall. Ready? Boom. That was 13 dominoes. If I had 29 dominoes, the last domino would be as tall as the Empire State Building.
So I wanted to share that visual because, I mean, we all know dominoes, right? We know these little 2-inch little brick dominoes, right? That we see them, because I know my family would like to play dominoes, right? And yet knowing that that 1 2-inch domino, right? And he started with like a millimeter, right? Could ultimately, by consistently moving the one behind it, that's 1.5, right? 1.5 times its size, can knock the next domino down. And so for us, when we're talking about this big, well, what's the first little 1 millimeter domino that we can do, that we can take, step that we can take to knock down the next?
Not hitting the button when you wake up.
What is that?
Not hitting the snooze button when you wake up.
Absolutely. Or making your bed, right? So we'll talk about what some of those different dominoes are, those leading dominoes are that can lead you to some amazing results. Now, this just shows in more graphic detail the geometric progression of what moving one domino can do and what it can knock down, right? I mean, by 18, you're knocking down the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? By 31, you're over Mount Everest. By 57, you're hitting the moon, right? And so these are just sequential steps that you're taking. You know, you hear about overnight successes, right? Overnight success. Yes, I was an overnight success, and it only took me 13 years to be so, right? And that's what we call the gradually and then suddenly, the geometric progression, where things are moving so slow. Some points you see this line almost up to right before the 57, it's almost flat. Do you ever have times in your life where you feel like you're just not really going anywhere? Like it just feels like things are not moving at the rate and at the pace that you want it to move, right? And so that's the geometric progression that we're talking about, where it just feels flat until it's not. It's flat until it's not. And it's usually at the point right before the 57, right before the curve up, that most people quit. That's when you've put the most time and energy and you've seen the least amount of return, right? Right before things turn. Gradually and then suddenly. Have you ever experienced that? Are you feeling that? Or is anybody in that place or in that space, or have experienced that in their own lives or their careers? No?
Absolutely.
I know I have. Years.
I'll add that there's I was reading Atomic Habits, and I love how he uses the demonstration of the ice cube and how all of our work is really just being stored up. It's not wasted. And so a frozen ice cube goes from frozen at a certain degree of temperature. And it's just not until that right change in level in temperature that it happens. And then it just starts to melt. And so I keep my new mantra is like 32 degrees is I'm not at 32 degrees. So just don't quit, right? You just don't quit because you just want to quit now, but you just have to wait till that 32-degree mark.
Yeah.
Looks like what you're showing here, but once we wait it out, it'll get there, but you just can't quit.
You can't quit. Not if you believe you're doing, right? So as we're trying to decide what the domino is, let's first talk about how are you prioritizing your world, right? Especially in the world of business. there's this rule called the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. Do you notice that almost anywhere, whether it be an office or everything, it's about 20% of the people that's going to participate in everything, right? So the Pareto principle says that 80% of the results come from 20% of the activities, right? There's always 20% of the things that you do that are most important to your business and to your life, right? And those 20% impact 80% of your results. If we were able to pinpoint what the 20% was and maximize our time focused on those 20% activities, would they not yield as more results? Right? So as a realtor, I know that our top 20% is essentially lead generation, lead follow-up. The more that our calendar and our time can be focused on lead generation, lead follow-up, the more results that we get. It's just math. Right? And so when you're looking at your calendar and you're wondering, how can I effectively get more results, right? How can I get more listings? How can I get more leads? Well, what's the 20% on your calendar? How much of your calendar is dedicated to your 20%? And so when you think about what your 20% looks like, and when you start coming to terms with what your 20% looks like, you get to decide what you need to focus on. And so here's a great focusing question from the book, The One Thing, right? What's the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Right? I've only got time. Maybe I've got from my 20%, I've got 2 hours today to focus on, right? What does the 80% it look like? The 80% looks like stuff that can be leveraged out. The 80% looks like the website that you keep trying to build that you want to spend all your time on, right? But that's not necessarily the dollar productive activity. The 20% is the dollar productive activity. And so of the time that you have allotted, what's the one thing that you know that you can do that you should get done that such that by doing it, everything else will be easier and necessary, right? As a realtor, I know if I make certain amount of calls during this time that I have, then the rest of my day looks easier. The rest of my business looks easier because I have more business coming in, right? I have leads to follow up with. I have people to service, right? So for you guys, thinking about and using this focusing question, for me, this was a game changer. And this is why this book was so impactful for me, because it allowed me to clear away the stuff that doesn't matter. When you're coming up with, so how many of you guys like making lists? Right? We got the to-do lists, right? And yet, we don't all finish those because they're not all priorities. So what's the one thing on my list, on my to-do, that's such that by doing it, everything else is easier and necessary? And it's not necessarily what you think it is either. For some, it's making sure I make my bed in the morning. Because if I make my bed in the morning, then I know that I've started my foot off on the right foot, my day off on the right foot, and I'm able to tackle whatever is in front of me. So when you think about, I'm going to show you how this applies to different areas of your life. Okay. When you're thinking about different areas of your life and trying to decide, okay, what are the things that matter most and that I want to focus on? You can consider different areas of your life. For instance, for my physical health, I made a realization yesterday that one of the things that I know that I consistently do is drink water, right? And so for my physical health, the one thing that I can do that makes everything else easier and necessary is making sure I drink enough water for the day. When I don't drink enough water, I can already tell you rough my day was. I feel lethargic and everything. And I realized that is a huge one thing for me, making sure I drink my water. My personal life, my key relationships. For me, my husband, my relationship with my husband is my foundation for everything. If things are not going well with my relationship, it impacts all the other areas of my life. And so ensuring that I feed that relationship however I need to, whether we need to talk about communication, whether we need to spend time together. The one thing is that I made sure to and nurture that relationship for me. That makes everything else easier or unnecessary. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What in these different areas of your life, we're talking about for your business, for your job, for your finances, for your spiritual life, right? Spending time, for some it's just spending 5 minutes in the morning in silent reflection, right? What's the one thing for you guys that you know you need in order to get your day going, in order to be right?
Good morning, Val.
Good morning.
So for me, it is, of course, drinking my water. Some days I struggle with that, just like you. I'm certainly not perfect, but that is certainly something that is important to me, as well as making my bed first thing in the morning. And as soon as my feet hit the floor, I always tell myself that today is going to be a good day. Whether it is or it isn't, I at least start out with the mindset that it is. And business, it's making my 5 intentional connections a day, making sure that I've reached out to 5 people in my database that, could make the world a difference. Making sure that we're continually moving my business and my world forward. Intentional contacts aren't necessarily just business contacts. Majority of them are, though.
Yep.
Some are friends, some are family members I haven't spoken to in forever, some are colleagues. So, it's just intentional. Whoever pops in my head sometimes, I was like, oh, instead of calling that person, this person was heavy on my heart, so let me call them.
I appreciate you sharing, John. Thank you. I like the fact that you talk about just 5 contacts too. Like what we have to overcomplicate or make it so much. That's something that you can consistently commit to, right? And in doing so, you're increasing your daily confidence with your actions. Anyone else?
I'll go. Morning, Val.
Good morning.
So for me, this is newly found just within the last couple months, and I've realized it's helped me immensely for kind of like that domino effect. It's meditation. So when I get up in the morning, and that's the very first thing I do before I drink my coffee, before I look at my calendar, before I pull up social media, I take a good 20 minutes to just be, because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we don't get that. And so it allows me to just be, clear my space, and in order to receive for the rest of the day. And so by doing that, it allows me to show up in areas all over. So that allows me to kind of habit stack and that domino effect. So then it inspires me to do my workout, because now I feel good. I do my workout, then I do my reading, then I do my prayer. And it really just, that is my catalyst of every morning that I have a great day. And when I don't do it, I feel it. So that's kind of my non-negotiable every day.
And I love the simplicity of it, right? That allowing for you being able to do your meditation allows you to take on the tasks ahead, right? And push down the next domino. And so how does this lead to your big, right? When we're talking about our goals, right? If you go backwards from your someday goal, whatever that big someday goal is, right? And plan forward from someday to 5 years. We can kind of we can kind of project and plan out for 5 years, right? 5 years, we often, as Edwin had said, right, we often underestimate what we can do in 5 years. We can plan out for 5 years, right? And then plan forward for the 1 year. We often overestimate what we can do in 1 year, though. Oh, right. Plan forward. What does 5 years, what do I need to look like in 5 years in order to hit that awesome goal, that someday goal, right? What does life need to look like in 1 year for me to be on 5 years? Okay. Every month, what does life need to look like for me to be on pace for my one goal? That's easy. We can put that, we got a 1-page sheet for that, right? What weekly goals do you need to hit to be hitting your monthly goals? What daily goals do you need to hit? What about your right now, right? Your one thing. What's the one thing that you need to do today that's going to move you forward to hit your daily goals that will allow you to hit your weeklies, to get to the monthlies, to ultimately get to your big goals? So you don't need to think about the big elephant, right? The saying goes is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And so what's your first one thing for today? And I really hope you guys reflect and take some time on considering and thinking about what's your one thing that you know that you need to do or can do to help move you forward today. Any last thoughts or shares? No?
Good morning, Valerie.
Good morning.
Is Edwin? No, I just want to say thank you. That's very inspiring, I'll say. A lot of what you said today is definitely resonating with me, and I'm going to process it because I feel like this is good information that I can use immediately. So I appreciate you.
Appreciate that, Edwin. Thank you. Yeah, I like practical, right? We overcomplicate our lives so much. And how can we just get down to the simplicity of being able to move forward every day, move the needle forward, right? So I think tomorrow, Jonna, are you on tomorrow? You want to just tell them a bit about what you're going to talk about?
Tomorrow we will be discussing managing your database. And if you don't have one, I'll help you figure out how to create one.
All right, well, I look forward to that conversation. I apologize for the tech issues today. When it's working, it's working. When it's not, it's not. But we'll roll right through it, okay? Thank you guys for participating, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.